Hi, everyone. Lovely to be here. Very excited to talk to you today about bringing Agile to Amnesty. I want to start with a quote which really touched me. Libby Griffin Carino said to me a few years ago, "We've had more moments of celebration in the last 5 months than my three previous years at Amnesty." And this touched me because we were a year into a transformation journey where I was leading the communications and digital team at Amnesty UK through a big change. And there were lots of elements to that change. And one of them was moving to an agile way of working. I think the thing that I really want to talk about today in the context of the summit is I love agile. I don't think agile is a magic bullet. Agile, I think, is a very powerful tool, and when used correctly, is the engine that can power your transformation. And I believe that the reason that some people have bad experiences or feel like it's not the right thing for them is because they haven't built the proper foundations. So I want to talk about that today. I'm Carmen Barlow. I run a consultancy that does digital strategy and transformation for a range of charities. Most recently, I've worked with Amnesty, Refuge, Plan International, Rutgers, and Marie Curie, one of the top 10 UK health organizations. And I've been a senior leader in-house, as well as leading change as a consultant. And I feel like this has allowed me to see change from different perspectives. And I bring that to what I share with you today. I'm also a founder of the charity Change Collective. We are 12 change makers who are working on a range of tools, resources, events, and research, which we're publishing regularly for free, that allow charities to learn from the transformation of other great organizations and use tools to help them become more resilient, responsive, and future-proof, because we want to have a impactful and healthy sector now and in the future. So let me talk about Amnesty. When I arrived there, what I found was that I was leading a team of 25 very talented people that were stuck in a reactive firefighting cycle. They were consistently missing ambitious targets, especially income goals. There was low morale, even though they were hugely passionate about our work and human rights. They were drowning in over a dozen active big campaign areas. It felt very strategically unfocused and just like a lot of churn, a lot of campaign churn out. And everyone felt that what we just needed was more time, more resource, but resources were locked and there was no additional resource available. And so, what happens in an environment where you're under a lot of pressure, you want to do really good work, and there's just never enough time, is that people become heads down, information sharing gets more difficult, silos develop. And then the knee-jerk reaction is that people feel that if we had more meetings, if we created more spaces where people would just come together and share information and collaborate, then things would get better. And as a result, you then get this sort of toxic meeting overload where everyone feels like they're going to unproductive meetings and they have to do their work at the end of the day after all these meetings. Not all of the meetings are unproductive, but this sort of dynamic develops. And so at the same time as I came into this situation as a leader and started thinking about, well, how do we fix this? We have no additional resources. We need to solve this problem with the resources we have. I also picked up this book. This book, you may already know this, is very famous. And obviously the title jumped out to me. So it's Jeff Sutherland's book called Scrum, The Art of Doing Twice the Work in Half the Time. Obviously the title appealed because we had all this work and what we needed was more time to do it. If we could get anywhere near to doing double the work in half the time, we would solve all of our problems. We would achieve these ambitious income goals. We would have a team that wasn't teetering on the edge of overwork and burnout. But I had the feeling that it wasn't quite enough, even though Jeff explains all these different ways that he brought Agile and Scrum into all kinds of different contexts. I could see how we might apply it, but underlying were still some real problems that we needed to solve first. And the thing that stood out most to me, and this is not unique to Amnesty, and it's not a criticism, it happens in my experience in a lot of organizations, is something I've since coined as weaponized purpose. It's the sense that our passion and deep care for the mission, for the cause, is enough for us to make the right decisions, to work hard and achieve our goals. When actually it, it creates a mindset that avoids you addressing operational realities. It gets in the way of making important strategic decisions and operating a little bit more, which I know in the sector we don't really like, but a little bit more like a business where you have to prioritize, you have to resource things in a way that allows them to succeed. And instead, what you create in these resource poor environments with a great deal of passion is a little bit of a dysfunction where when you're busy, that feels like you're doing everything you can. And so this was one of the things we had to change first. We also had to lay some really important foundations that allowed us to create time and space and trust to try this new way of working. And I call this the four unsexy prerequisites. The first one is having really well-defined, this is not going to shock you, but having really well-defined, clear, measurable goals that are based in reality, that your directors agree upon, and that are prioritized. So that when push comes to shove, you can say, which one is priority 1, 2, and 3, and which one am I going to do first? This is really important. This is really important. I don't think you can do change without that. I don't think you can do great work without that. The next thing was clear roles and remits, another no-brainer. We needed to know who was doing what, where were the gray zones, where was their overlap. Then we needed to get buy-in. Did everyone understand what we were going to change, why we were going to change it, how it was going to affect them? If our sequence and rituals of meetings was going to change, how would that affect their existing meetings? Which ones would we be able to attend, which ones not? And then we needed some processes. So I really believe in terms of building time and trust and radical transparency. How could we share our work with the whole organization so everyone knew what we were working on in real time and what we were prioritizing and why? This goes back to the goals. And also have a way for them to bring ideas to us. This is always the case, right? A work environment like this is dynamic. So we had a 3-tier briefing process. And that meant people knew that they could send an idea in or a request, and it would take, we had SLAs, they would find out whether we would take work forward and how we were dealing with it. And what all of this did was it reduced ad hoc requests. It created greater trust in our work, and the visibility helped with that, greater credibility for a new approach, and most importantly, time and mental space for the team to try something new. Now, enter Agile. This is where I tried to initially take the team through doing Agile. I thought I read the book, I could do it. And that didn't really work out. It felt, I didn't have the tools to train the team. So ultimately what we did is we worked with an expert. We got someone in who trained us how to do great sprint practice, who trained us how to do great planning, who trained us on how to run constructive retrospectives and iterate and improve. I've since done several Agile transformations with different organizations, and I would approach what I did at Amnesty differently if I knew what I know now. Agile can be so different, it's really worth bringing in someone with that external perspective to take you through it. And I think the ultimate sort of success factor for us was that it forced us and helped us to really focus on doing less better. So let's talk about the results. The results kind of speak for themselves. As you can see on the graph on the right-hand side, what you have here is I've plugged the key metrics that were important to us to achieve, which were around donor growth, income, and campaign actions over that time period. And what basically happened is that we turned a downward trajectory around. And this was a long-term downward trajectory. On all key metrics, we improved. Team morale transformed. And what we had was now a sustainable, focused, and strategic way of thinking and working. The feedback came from around the organization, but the 2 quotes that I want to take out and point out to you were that the director of fundraising said that this was the best digital fundraising year that Amnesty had ever had. This was after the first year that we implemented these changes. and the quote I shared with you at the beginning about the team morale and how there were more moments of celebration in the last 5 months than in the 3 previous years. So a roaring success all round. And I guess the thing to give you as a takeaway from this is I think there's a few keys to agile transformation. In fact, I think there are three elements because I think agile is really powerful, but it's not transformation in itself. And what I've learned from bringing this to a bunch of different organizations is that you first need to build strong foundations and create the time and space to make this change and invest properly in the support and learning. So for me, the question isn't should we do agile? The question is, can we create the environment and conditions in which agile can succeed? And lastly, what can you do now? And the advice that I always give to people is to start small. Do any of these wherever you are, have a plan, start getting buy-in, prioritize properly, resource properly. If you don't have enough resources, do less. Ask for help, use your resources, and celebrate your success. Remember that change isn't possible without you, and that I really think that anyone can do this. It's just about making sure that you have the right foundations in place. And if you need help, reach out. And now I think we're going to move over to some questions.